Okay, so it's fantastic that you could join us today, Emmor. Thank you very much. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, my name is Emmor Nile, and I have been mapping with OpenStreetMap for 10 years now, and I have a strong affinity for East Africa, Africa in general, and I've done a lot of mapping in East Africa. I was in Ushirombo near Kahama in Tanzania about 7 years ago on a project. Excuse me. And then I lived in Ethiopia 5 years ago for a year. And so I'm familiar with East Africa and the way that you know, the mapping needs to be done. I also have 30 years of experience using geographic information systems, and I'm a very hands-on editor that way. And today what I would like to do is give a little demonstration of how I use JOSM, the Java OpenStreetMap editor, to validate the hot projects. So I should be able to share screen, is that right?
Yes, you should. And Emmor, while you're talking, do you want people to be able to ask questions in the chat or unmute, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, I think asking questions is fine while we're live. Let's see.
Okay, great. So please do ask questions as we go along, then, everyone, and welcome Rivimbo as well.
Okay, so here we have, so you're able to see my screen now, correct?
Yes, thank you.
We have a recent project that we have underway in Kizaga. So you can see that it's kind of south of Mwanza, and we've had some good contributions to this. Just to give kind of a perspective, if you're not familiar with how did you contribute to OpenStreetMap, it's a very good tool to use to help validate. So when you see an editor that you're not familiar with, you can go to this tool and see how much editing they've done. So this is my OSM username is Palolo, and you can see that I have over 2,400 days of editing. And just for perspective, I've also traced 500,000 buildings. And so that in those 2,000 days, that means I've done about 220 buildings every day that I've edited. And that's a good number. But the important thing to remember is that in the whole planet, there are about 1.7 billion buildings. And it's taken me more than 2,000 days of editing just to get 500,000. So I feel it's very important to take the time to map the buildings correctly, to trace the outline accurately and not try and rush. Because when people rush, then that means that somehow it has to be cleaned up. And there are no magic workers that come at night and clean up different mistakes or errors that have been made. So it's a handy way. And so let's see, we can see here's Charles. You can see the tremendous number of edits that Charles has made just in the last year. He's made over 4,000 change sets and has done a lot of work in Zambia and Tanzania. You also can see then he has 4,600 edits in JOSM, as well as Street Complete, ID, and then also some ID. So this is one way to quickly see how people have been contributing. So that one of the things, the first word of OSM is open, and open means that whatever is done is visible by the world. So we'll go into this project here. I'll pick this tile, which was done by Helen, and I'll click on the validate task. And then over in JOSM, you can see that the layers come in, and you can see the editing that is done. And so the first thing I do is I navigate around to see if I can see any glaring errors that or omissions that might have taken place. And this looks very good. I can now zoom in and see that this is a building that was done by Helen, because you can see that the author is, once I select the item, is Helen. And then I also with this can view the history. So this opens up another pop-up window, and you can see that this was done on 10 October, just three days ago. And this is the tag for this edit, and you can see that Helen used the ID editor. So these the tiles are small enough that you can go around the area, and we can see that the building corners are square, and that the work was well done. Now, this project, it's important to go back and look at the instructions, and the instructions for this project call for buildings only. So you can see that there are some roads that are missing. This is probably a residential road or a path leading to these homes, but the project does not call for tracing the roads. We set up a different size tiles for a roads project, because if we were to trace this road right here, we would end up with an island road, or a road that does not connect to other road segments. And that's in OpenStreetMap, it's important to, within a project, create a road network, so that when a map is used by an individual, that the roads actually connect, and they don't have the roads don't float off into space. So I zoom in a little bit, and it looks like there might be a building here, but it's difficult to tell because it's under this tree. And so that's a little bit, I'm not sure, but I see this building here. It looks like there's a shed on the side of it. So I will, it's difficult to tell, but just to show the tool in editing in ID, I select this building, and then I click on the X key for the extrude button. I double click and then move this corner of the building out. So now this is still a rectangular, still has square corners, and this is a minor edit, and it was probably not a major one, but just for the sake of showing that tool. So this is this is also the handy tool. Here's the draw building. So I'll go ahead and click on the save, just to save my edits, which is just this one building. And then I come back here to the completion of this task and say, yes, submit. It was completed correctly. So now I'm going to actually, so any questions on the rough or the initial initial validation? We'll go now to one of Carolina's projects. And again, I look the overall view of this this tile looks good. I don't see any buildings that are that got overlooked. I zoom in on this corner of this compound, and it looks okay. And so, Carolina, good job on doing this. This building here started in the tile, but then extended into the neighboring tile. And this is the correct way to trace a building, because we don't want to draw a line right at the tile. The tile boundaries are arbitrary, and it's important to have the it's important to have the entire building traced, not just the part that's in the tile. And I go and I look and I see that the buildings are square, but now you see that this building was actually traced by another person. This Taryn Rickett is the person that actually traced this building. So one of the things that is good to do is to select all the features, and you can see that there were 4 different editors: Taryn, Carolina, Helen, and Michael 63. But Taryn, it looks like, did most of them. But since Carolina is the one that completed this tile that said, yes, it's completely mapped, I double click. And so now I can see these are the buildings that were, these are the features that were traced by Carolina. So you can see that it looks like she worked on this building here, and as well as then some of these down here. So again, we can click on this, select this building here, go to the view and history, and see that Taryn is the one that actually originally traced it, but then the individual node, we'll go pick this one here, and to view the history. Now we can see that Taryn originally traced it on October 7, and then Carolina did an edit to it on the 14th. And so that's fine, but this is a part of knowing that the that everything you edit in OpenStreetMap is open and available to be seen. So we have people that think that it's I don't believe that this is any of you interns now, but I've often seen where people think, oh, well, this is a place of the world where nobody knows or nobody cares, and they'll try and do something, create an imaginary place or a buildings, or do something like Minecraft. And this is a real map, and this is it's actually very exciting, because this is probably the first time ever that this building has been mapped. This is someone's home, and it's exciting to be able to map their home for the first time. And I've been able to be in villages where I had OpenStreetMap and the buildings had been traced, and able to show someone, this is your house on the map, and it's exciting. So please make sure to take the time to make sure all the buildings are mapped correctly. And even if someone has made a mistake in doing it beforehand, then you need to make sure to take the time to actually fix those errors, because even though most of the editing was done by other people, and we can see that in the activity here, we can see that there were several people had been working on it. Carolina was the individual that said, yes, this is complete. And so we go back to the completion. I'm satisfied that yes, everything is complete, and then submit the task. So far in this area, it's I've seen it's pretty good mapping. But one, let's check. Let's see, who was this one? So here's another person, Rixall. We'll go to validate this one, and so here's an example of this is actually a building right here. It doesn't have a tin roof, but it actually has another colored roof. And then you also can see this is a building here, because you can see the shadows, and I'm not sure what's on this roof, but so there are 3 buildings that are in this location that still need to be mapped. I'm just looking for other areas on this on this tile. And then here are 2 other buildings that you can see by the shadows. So these probably have a natural roof of some type, of maybe a thatch, or I'm not sure what the roofing material is, but this is a building as well. So there are 4 buildings here. Now we have 2 choices. We could come back here and say, no, it's not well mapped, but it would, but you would need, it would be important if you said no, to make sure to write a comment. And that it's very important to not just say, no, it's not mapped, without telling people why. And in this case, there's 4 buildings that we need to add. And so I'm going to go and actually fix that right now. And this is the building tool. It's an extension. So if you go to the preferences and then plugins, and then type building, the buildings tool is the one I'm going to use. So this is a very valuable plugin for JOSM, and it means that JOSM, I'm able to edit much faster and at a higher quality product than when I'm using ID. So that's when I click on the buildings tool, and so I click and draw the line, and then I line it up and let go, and then click again. So then there's a building, and it's now traced with square corners. I'll also do this building here and the one across the road. And then here's these 2 buildings on this side. And then I'll also click on the X key for the extraction tool to make this. So now this tile is now complete to my satisfaction. Now there is there's also this question here. So who can tell me what this is in this image? Post it in the chat or unmute. Don't be shy, please.
Oh, I think that is a building.
This is a building under construction. And, you know, I often in Tanzania, you will see when people buy a lot, a little parcel of property, and bring the rocks for the foundation when they can afford them, and then start buying the bricks in order to raise the walls of the house and buy the materials as they can afford. And it stakes a claim to that land in addition to the title to it, and then as the funds are available. So this is a building under construction. And so I will go ahead with, I'll go ahead and trace this building, but then I'll also select it. And I could say building equals construction, and then say okay. And so now you can see that it's shown as a building under construction. And then as it gets completed, then the tag can be changed. This is also another building under construction. And it may take several years for the individual to complete the building, but now we have it on the map. And often the local ward government or the municipality will actually assign an address to a building even before it's completed. So we'll go ahead and do that. Again, construction without building. Oh, so we need to, there was an edit. We need to also add the tag that says construction. Construction equals yes. And then we'll upload. So maybe it's better to say just building or construction equals yes. And now, so that my mistake, you can say building equals construction, but the error trapping in JOSM is saying that the tag, a better tag is just to say construction equals yes. So we have the default tagging or the change set comment, which is always important, so to know where the source of the project is, as well as then the imagery, and we say upload. And so now we'll go back to this tag, and we'll I click on the at sign, and I'm going to click Ricksall, the editor, and said added several overlooked buildings. Thank you for your contribution. So that this way the editor will know that we're doing some, that we appreciate their work, but there were some buildings that were overlooked, and then we hit submit. And I think with that, then I'll open up for questions, and we can, if you want to know more information about using JOSM or the ID editor as well. And one thing I think we can see on my contributions that I have over 11,000 edit sessions with JOSM, but I also have 3,000 edits with ID, as well as 2,400 with Rapid, which is based on ID. So I use ID often, but in terms of being able to get a better view of what has been done, and especially using buildings, JOSM for me is a better tool. So go ahead and ask questions.
Thank you, Emmor. Any questions, anyone?
So the question is, how is the link for JOSM? And the way I would do that is go to Google and say JOSM download. And we get to the this link here. I don't, it is it's from Germany. And then depending on if you're using your Windows, here's the latest, version, or if you're running on a Mac or Ubuntu, you can use that. So I just do a search in Google to say JOSM download. Good question. Kelvin, do you have a question? So Charles is asking, which plugin do you use if you want overlappings to be shown after running a query? The validation tool, I believe, will show that. I'm not sure. Let me just test in here to see. So now if I say upload, yeah, so there's no extension. It's just I created this building that overlaps, and then the validation tool in JOSM will show this error, and this is the overlapping area. So no extension needed, just the normal validation. So I'll back out of this, hit cancel, undo, and now you see that there's no green upload arrow or up arrow. So it shows there are no edits to be made. But a good question. because overlapping buildings are a problem. Okay.
Which plugins do you use most often?
For buildings, definitely the buildings buildings tool. And so let me go back to my plugins and see which other ones I use. The improved way is I use sometimes. I've also used the reverter tool. So Kelvin is asking, can a beginner prefer JOSM while mapping the task? This project here, the Kizanga buildings, I would say is a very good task or project for learning how to use JOSM, because there are many buildings, but there are not too many. It's very difficult when you're mapping a shanty town, for example. That's the most difficult mapping there is, because the buildings are irregular. These buildings in this project, which is project 13605, is a very good one to learn JOSM. And if you look at the videos that Janet has provided, it will help you get started. But let me go through more of my plugins, and then I'll actually do the editing in one of these tiles. The utils plugin 2 is a very good one. Several utilities to make your life easier, and that's the extraction tool. So that's probably the main. The terracer is for like an apartment complex or a terraced building where there's many dwellings in one. I don't use that very often. And I also use the shape tiles, shape tools. And Janet posted the link. So would you like me to actually map one tile? Let's go do that. Here's a tile here, and it has not been mapped, and I'll click on the map selected tile. And so again, we'll pick on this, the toolbar that's buildings, and I zoom into an area, and then click twice, and then release. So I'm also going to pick on I'm going to select this building. And so now when I have the buildings toolbar, it automatically makes the next building perpendicular. And so these two buildings now have been are aligned in right angles. And but I'll just unselect it. Here's another building that has a porch or an extension on the roof. I hit the X key, and then that's the extract tool, and I slide that portion of the building out. And then because it is selected now, this other building in the back is now parallel. And then I'll come over to these two buildings, and I click, let go, and click again. And so it's a matter of 3 clicks to trace the entire building. So you can see that I won't do the entire tile, but you can see that the buildings are very obvious. And again, this is a building. This is probably some outbuilding like a barn or a corn crib, or this is probably, I think they grow rice in this area. These look like rice paddies. And so it's important to not just do the buildings with the tin roof, but also look for the other ones. But so this is possibly a building here, but it's very small. And the key thing would be to do these 2 outbuildings and then the main dwelling, and not worry about this little one here, because it's very small. So I'm going to save the edits, and take the defaults with JOSM and upload. And the question back here is the task completely mapped? No. And I'll just say still more buildings to be added. And then submit task. So if the other thing that sometimes people do is they feel like they have to do something to map on every tile, and that's not necessarily true. This tile, if you have a tile that has nothing, there's no buildings, then it's okay to say yes, it's completely mapped. So Charles is asking about how do you deal with offset offset imagery. So Charles is asking about when you see buildings that are not lined up with the current imagery. And let me try this this task here. Let's see if I can show that and illustrate that's something that Charles is showing. So here is a this is a building that was traced by Manju, and if we go to the history, we can see that well, this was another hot project that we did, and now I'm actually going to the change set, and the this was done with Rapid, and it was using a this TM imagery, and so it's if we go to the instructions for this project, the instructions say use Maxar, or it should be a Maxar Premium. We can see that down here, we're using Maxar Premium. If we look at Bing imagery, you can see that it's very different. And we could do an offset. This is a huge offset, actually, because you can see the roads are aligned by quite a distance, and so you see this road junction intersects, and so we have to try and figure out which is best. So in this case, we're saying that the Maxar imagery is correct, and we can just move this building. So Charles's question was, what happens when you see many buildings that are misaligned? Let me see if I can find. Banju only did those with that other imagery. So if you see many buildings that are misaligned, and I'll show you how this would be done. Say they don't line up with the imagery that we've asked, you can pick them and move them all at once, and it will show an error. And in this case, I'm going to say undo move, because I don't want to move them. And so that's how we'll do it. So we have another question. Let me save these edits here. And because this building did need to be updated. And oh, so here's another error that we often see. And so this one was done by this editor, Taryn Rickett. And so there's two errors that we see here. Can someone tell me what those two errors are, please? Charles, go ahead. What are the errors?
All right, thank you so much. So the first error is the load is passing on top of a building. The load cannot pass on top of a building. Then the
Correct.
second error is the shape. The shape of that building is not in the square, and that's not the way it is looking.
Very good. Thank you. That's correct. So even though this, so the first error or the second error that Charles mentioned was the building is not square. It does not have, is not a rectangle. So I've selected it. I hit the Q key, and then I will realign it. The first error that Charles mentioned was this road, which is named as a classified, is running through the building. And so you cannot have a road go through a building. So I'm going to move the road here, just moving the individual nodes and to this location. And then I'm realigning it. Now, this is not an unclassified highway, and and there's no reason to have the, so you see the tagging on the right here, it says layer equals 1. Well, layer 1 is only necessary if you have a bridge. So I'm going to delete that tag, and then this actually is just a path. So I'm going to say edit and say path and okay. And then this, I'm also going to move this one here because it also is a path. And I'm going to fix that. So it's possible that because that the editor previously added layer because it was over the top of the building, but we can't have the road going through a building. So I'm going to upload this just to save those edits. So Ravimbo asked the question, how many edits do you need to become a validator? And I guess the important thing for me is that you're always learning. I'm always finding new mistakes that I've made or learn new things, and I learn things from new editors. But I would say that a couple of hundred edits is necessary, another edit sessions, in order to become an editor, because you need to know how to, a validator, you need to know how to do the editing before you can say how much needs to be done. This one was a very obvious error. These are two very obvious errors: the road running through the building and then the shape. So good question. Other questions? Oh, I need to go back then. Is this completion? Yes, this tile is completely mapped, and I'll hit submit. So I guess the main thing I would like to say in all of this is to thank you for your interest in OpenStreetMap, and the mapping someone's home for the very first time is not only exciting, but it's very important, because to have your home on the map is a valuable thing, because this is where people live, and your contributions make a big difference. And there are still several million buildings in Tanzania alone that need to be mapped, and perhaps another billion maps on the whole planet. And so your work is contributing to that. And remember, take the time to do it properly, and as we all work together, then we can move the map towards completion. So I'll stop sharing at this point, unless there's any other questions. Nothing in the chat. Okay, Janet, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. Well, Stuart's asking about the Crowd2Map tasks. Perhaps could you just share the Tanzania Development Trust tasks on the hot tasking manager, and perhaps say which ones would be the most suitable for people depending on their level of experience? You're muted, Emmor.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So this is these are actually, I guess we should pick the where's Crowd2Map?
Well, it's under it's Tanzania Development Trust.
So here's I just typed Tanzania, so you can see the Tanzania Development Trust projects. So the one I was just showing was this 13605 is an excellent beginners project. And this Kiomoni project is a larger one that is a little bit more challenging, and but would be a good one for people to move to after getting some experience. Now you can see this this tile says more mapping needed, and so this was a place where the validators actually went in and said, no, there's more work to be done, and it's not just a simple fix. It's not a matter of fixing one road or path going across a building, but there were many buildings that needed to be traced. Often what will happen is people will finish editing a tile, and what they mean, and then they'll say it's completely mapped. And really what they mean is I'm done mapping, and but there's more mapping that's needed. So that's an example of a mistake that it's a mistake. It's not something that somebody's maliciously trying to make a problem. So we also have this project that was done. It's an older one, but it's roads and buildings, and so there's a lot to roads are difficult, and there's a lot to learn about roads. But when you do start mapping roads, the primary roads are a path, which is typically in kind of in a farmyard or where people live, a residential road, or an unclassified. And those are the primary ones that we use in Tanzania, although there are other ones. And so, but there is a web page on Africa tagging for roads, and I would encourage you, if you have questions about that, to reach out. So anyway, so just searching for Tanzania or Tanzania Development Trust, and we're probably, this project is moving towards completion, and so we'll probably set another one up soon.
Thank you. What are the most common errors that you normally see when you're validating?
It depends on the editor, but I think the most common error is people rushing to try and map too quickly. It's hard to not want to try and finish as much as you can, but what it ends up happening is then it takes more time to go and fix that. So zooming in on the building location so you can see the actual outline. In this case, it was this was pretty good. It was maybe 1 meter off, but to just roughly estimate. So sometimes we'll see people that will do will make a building that looks like this, and it's when you zoom out, then it looks okay from at this scale, but then when you zoom in, you can see it was much too large. And then we'll undo. The other thing then is to map a building that doesn't have square corners. And there are many buildings that are not square, but that's a common error. So here's another kind of a trick. So now I have, this doesn't have any tagging, but I'll hit the O key, the capital of the O, and it turns it into a circle. And then I can add the tag for building building equals yes. And then you can have, if say there were a circular building. So that's another handy tool. ID also has the ability to make a circular tool. There are not many circular buildings in Tanzania. Some countries like Ethiopia or Senegal have many circular buildings, but I've seen circular buildings in Tanzania, but you should only use that tool if it is a true circular building. Okay, did I miss any more questions?
No, I don't think so, but okay, there's a question from Charles.
Oh, it's about fixing the previous mapper's mistakes. And yes, this is a challenge where I don't have an example right handy, but if you get to a tile and someone else was an inexperienced mapper that didn't have the training from Tanzania Development Trust or youth mappers, and they were just rushing, they helped one time and then they stopped. If the key on each of these projects is that the tile is completely mapped, whether you as a mapper did it or someone else. If someone else made a mistake, then it's your job to fix that and clean it up. If this, in this case, for this tile for the roads, you can see that there's roads here on the western side of this tile that need to be traced. If this were a road project, I would need to fix the roads that are not aligned to the actual road. Here it is going off in the field. I would move this road over and then add the new one, and then change the alignment on this road to correctly match the imagery called for. So even though someone else made the editing, if you're saying this tile is complete, that it's your responsibility as the mapper to make sure that everything in the tile is correct. And that's why it's important to go look at who the actual, who the actual editors are. And so here's Carolina did these, and she actually fixed these, the corners of these buildings. So it's so good job, Carolina, to make those edits to those buildings that were done by a previous editor. So it's not a matter of just the editing, just the new mapping that you have to do, but also fixing the work of previous editors. Good question, Charles.
Thank you. Do you have any advice for people who would like to be validators in the future?
Validation is actually much harder than doing the mapping, because first of all, you do need to know how to map, but then second, you need to be able to solve the problems that have been created, that can be created, and then you need to be able to give good feedback. So I would say that taking time every day to do some do a little bit of mapping, is a good thing. So on this calendar, you can see that I map on all days of the week. I do this for fun because I enjoy it, and I also am contributing to people's to the map. Here you can see Kelvin did 3 days in a row and has been doing more mapping here. So taking the time, but still one edit session with JOSM is not nearly enough. So need to take the time to work through editing and running into problems, and pretty soon you'll start to get the you'll start to be like Charles, where he's done a lot of mapping, and you can see that he has 4,000 edits with JOSM, and so but it's also then learning how to improve your own mistakes.
Thank you, Emmor. Very true. And I would really urge people who haven't yet done this to put a link in the hot mapping questions channel in Slack with your mapping and get some feedback, and continue doing that, because there's some really excellent feedback from people like Simon Wild and others, very experienced validators, and they'll really give you some good feedback and point out anything that you do need to improve. So if you haven't done that, please do so as soon as you can, and if you have done that, please continue. Okay, well, unless there's any other questions, Emmor, sorry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Also, in the hot tasking manager, you can see the profile of the individual mapper, and so you can see how many buildings I've mapped, and how many kilometers of road, and even waterways. But then also, how much I've validated. Yeah, I've validated over 23,000 tasks. But then of the mapping I did, 900 of them, someone thought that more mapping was needed. Some of which were valid. I missed something, and that I needed to make those corrections. And so it's hard sometimes. And sometimes also people have said more mapping was needed, and they were done years after I'd done the mapping, because I'd been mapping for 10 years, and then new imagery comes. So I guess be very careful in clicking on, if you're validating, to click on the more mapping needed. So you can see how much editing someone has done by going to their profile on the tasking manager. Okay, I think I'm done.
Thank you. And just to add, if you are making comments about somebody else's mapping, it's really important to be encouraging, because everyone starts from somewhere, and everyone's got things that they can still learn. So thank you so much, Emmor. That was incredibly useful. I'm going to post the recording of this into the group, with the links. So just to recap, Harry was unable to join because of a power cut, so we will be talking about rovers next Friday. Okay, so thank you very much, Emmor, and thank you everybody, and have a good weekend. And happy Nireri Day to the...
Same to you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
to